All right, according to progress. Awesome. So, hi, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. My name is Catherine Resnicek, and my colleague is Dana Thompson. And we're super excited to be able to present to you guys today and talk a little bit more about AI, and specifically to talk a little bit about prompt engineering. So in the context of media literacy, right, we've been in media literacy, we talk a lot about helping our students understand the media, understand when you do searches or when you see things and it comes to you, what does that mean? Who's making the messages? What are the messages telling us? What is missing? What's there? And what are some of the biases? So none of that is changed with AI. It's actually even more so. So one of the things to really consider when we're thinking about AI, and especially the engineering of prompts, not only engineering what we ask AI, diving into what AI gives us back, but also who are the folks and who are the ones that are kind of training AI machines, and what data sets are they using to engineer what we get when we ask questions of AI. So I just want to put that kind of in a context. We also have a website that'll be part of the landing page for this session that'll be with the recording, and all the information that is presented today will be there, as well as a whole host of other information for you guys. So given that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dana, who has been working really hard over the last couple of months. Seems like it's gone really fast, just digging into everything AI and everything AI in education. So I'll turn it over to you, Dana.
Good morning. Thank you. So as we get started, if you want to share in the chat a little bit about how you may have been using AI, what you've learned yourself or what you've created with AI, so that we can kind of get a gauge on how people are using it. And just a little note, I have been kind of digging in to AI and the various uses in education and outside of education. And literally I'll give a presentation and the next day it's different. It is changing very, very fast. One of the statistics that I think is very powerful is that, it took Facebook, I want to say 7 years to get to 1 million users, and it took ChatGPT 5 days. And in 1 month, it got to 100 million users, where TikTok, which is one of the ones that we know has grown exponentially, took much longer than that. So it is fast-paced. It's something that is here to stay. And it's, as you can see in the chat, people are using it, including our students. In January, we had an event with high school students, a coding event. And when we asked, and this is when it was just, kind of being introduced, and it was the moment, at least half of the kids had already been using ChatGPT to help them with their coding. So our kids are using it, our students are using it. And so we're going to kind of touch on how we can help them be efficient users of AI. So AI, according to ChatGPT, is the ability of machines to replicate human-like intelligence. And what we really need to understand is that it's predicting word by word, but it's doing it so fast that it seems like it's thinking, it seems like it's having this conversation, but it really is just taking these huge data sets that, ChatGPT 3.5, which is not even the latest and greatest, the data set that it's been trained on would take somebody who reads 100 words a minute, 7 years to get through the data that ChatGPT has been trained on. So it's going through those data sets and just predicting the next word. So really, we have to be careful about what we're asking, and really how we can vet those sources. So it involves teaching these machines to learn from data sets and then make the decisions based on those data sets. Again, just predicting the next word, not even predicting the next phrase, but predicting the next word, which is why you can regenerate and it will give you a unique answer every time. And it's being used in various industries already, and it has been for years. And we always ask, how do you think you're using AI? And we always have somebody in the room that says, I don't use it. But if you're using text to speech, or if you're using Siri or Alexa or any of those, if you're using Netflix, there's AI that does the recommendation of the next show that you should watch. It's everywhere and we don't even realize it. So when we're looking at the reach of AI and machine learning, this is an industry that is growing, and these were statistics from 3 years ago. So by 2025, the guess was it would reach 204 billion, but it's actually now being predicted that it will reach a lot more than that. As far as the AI-based technologies, 57% of executives say that AI would transform their organization. And again, these are old statistics from the Amazon Web Services. So that is actually today. So, and we know that it is transforming organizations, and it plays a part in nearly every organization, including schools. So when we're looking at AI, educators, we've known, and it's starting to change, the tide is changing fast, but the big thing was that we were afraid that students are going to use things like ChatGPT or these AI technologies to cheat. But really what we really need to look at is that teenagers have the bigger concern of how this technology is going to impact their future job prospects. I have a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old. My 18-year-old's getting ready to graduate. And the job that he's going to train for in college doesn't exist today. And the job that he's going to train for in college will have AI involved in it. So how are we going to prepare our students to be successful in the workplace when it's their turn? Prompt engineering. So we've talked a lot about AI, but prompt engineering really is the process of designing and creating the prompts that we're going to ask these AI. And it involves using those critical thinking skills, creativity, collaboration, identify the problem and develop a solution. So that was an answer from ChatGPT. And then here's a quote here that I really, that resonated with me, that it's not just, prompt engineering goes beyond just asking questions. We can ask Google questions all day long, but prompt engineering involves providing clear and concise prompts. So they have to know how to phrase their prompts. So literacy is a huge skill that they're going to need to have. Clear and concise prompts that are easy for the AI model to understand, because again, it's just predicting the next word. They rely on algorithms to analyze prompts and generate responses, which means that providing a clear and specific prompt is critical. So data in equals data out. And I just want to kind of mention that all of the images in this presentation were AI generated. So this is one that was generated in Canva, which many teachers are using in the classroom and students are using as well. And it's the text to image. So I type in a prompt and it gives me the image that matches that prompt. And so my prompt for this one was an Apple IIe computer. Not that our students today would know what a 2E computer was, but and then in concept art. So giving that concise, that precise style that I want. So even in text to image or text to voice or text to video, these prompts matter. What you ask the engine to do matters. Data in is as good as data out.
Yeah. And think about how we've, over the years, have been trying to teach how to use Google, right? Keywords, Boolean, very, very, very specific 1, 2, 3, 4, answer or inputs. Whereas now we're having to go full circle and come back to prompt engineering, or asking AI is using more language, more detail, more specifics. So it's not going to be the same as Googling something.
Excellent point. So let's take a look at data. So quality input equals quality output. So as Kathy said, using it like we have been using Google searches is not effective. It is not going to get the answer that you want. It's going to be way too general. So you want to make sure that you're using quality data, giving the engine enough data so that it knows how you want the output. So giving examples is key. We don't give examples to Google search, right? But when you're using ChatGPT or Bing, Microsoft Bing, you want to provide examples, because then it will understand what it is that you're looking for as far as the product or the output. So providing examples, give the prompt an identity, and it will change the output. And I'm going to show you an example that our director of infrastructure shared with us last week that we were all cracking up on, but giving it that identity. And teachers are using this, and I saw in the chat that giving it that persona, so that if you're teaching elementary school and you're studying a character in a book or in history, you can actually give the prompt that identity and generate output that you can then provide as a resource with your students that gives them that more kind of generic experience with that character. But using follow-up questions. So it's not just one and done. You're not giving a prompt and getting an answer, copying and pasting and using that. You want to use follow-up questions, dig in deeper, and get the engine to give you more detailed information or fuller answers to the questions. And really, these engines are generated to be conversational. So where we were taught with Google searches, fewer words, the better, with the AI engines, you want to be conversational. And so you want it because the natural language is what it's been trained on. So it will be more effective than giving, unless of course you're asking for actual code, then that's a different prompt. And length matters in that shorter is more effective because it doesn't have to parse through the data to try and figure out what the output is supposed to be. But too short doesn't give the engine enough context to know what it is that you're looking for. So it's this kind of game that you're playing with the AI machine so that you're getting the information you want. And so another good quote from Matt Miller, who is Ditch That Textbook: "We can help students become great prompt engineers by studying what makes effective AI prompts and sharing that with them." So even if you're not using AI in the classroom with students, giving them the skills where they can then use those skills as they get into using AI outside of the classroom is very helpful. So how to write a prompt, again, all of the images are either Canva image to text to image, sorry, or DALL-E, which is OpenAI, which created ChatGPT. They created DALL-E, which is a text to image generator, and Image Creator by Bing, which I have found to be the easiest to use. Those engines have created all of these images. So 4 things that you need to include in a prompt. There has to be an instruction and or a question. That's a non-negotiable. So it needs to know what you want it to do, what you want it to reproduce. So an instruction can be combined with a question and vice versa, but it needs to have at least an instruction or at least a question. And then the other 2 items will just help clarify what it is that you're looking for. So giving an instruction with input data and examples, or asking a question and giving it examples of what you're looking for. So it needs to include those different elements. So think about how you structure your prompt, because large language models, LLMs, only work moving forward. They don't go back and review your prompt. So giving instructions and then giving examples will improve the quality of the output. If you did it the other way around, it might not remember what those examples are before it gets the instruction, and it will just operate off of the instruction. So other prompts, you want to create context like a role. So for, as a 5th grade teacher, generate this, or as a higher ed engineering first-year student, and then asking your prompt. So you want to give it a role or provide context of what it is that you're looking for. Be specific and give it detailed task. What do you want it to do in the end? And that's where examples really help the engine understand what it is, the product that you're looking for. So what it is that you want it to come out with in the end? So what is that product? And then ask it to help revise your prompt. So sometimes, and I've done this several times, where I ask my prompt and I'm not getting what I'm looking for. So I'll ask the AI model how I can, revise this prompt so it is a little bit clearer. And it's done that on several occasions, because my brain knows what I want, but it's not generating the data that the AI engine needs in order to get the result that I'm looking for. So there are a lot of frameworks that are being created, and these three are ones that I've kind of run across a lot. And when you get linked to the slide deck, each one of the names here will link out to their kind of blog on introducing the framework, but they're acronyms and they really help kind of visualize that process for you and students and anybody who's going to use AI tools and prompt engineering. And it will be posted on our Google site as well. Do what I mean as opposed to do what I say exactly. There was actually a good quote yesterday that I was listening to a webinar, and the gentleman said, let AI do the work, you do the thinking, and which I thought was great, because you can think of what you want and then the AI can spit out the work. It's so much faster than we can, and it really saves time for us and our students. But in all of these models, one of the things that we want to really look at is that they all give us a tool on how to create a good prompt, but then they all follow up with at least 2 steps on how to evaluate the response and make sure that it's not biased and that it's factual and it's not giving you information that is not credible. So really, that's that media literacy piece that students really need to understand. Just like with Google, just because Google said it's true doesn't mean it's true, right? That's what we've been telling them for years. Just because the AI gave you this prompt response doesn't mean that it's true. It's what's called hallucinations, where the prompt will give you false information, but it sounds so credible, but it's a hallucination because it's just predicting the next word. It's not necessarily verifying sources. So the space model, set the directions, prompt the AI, assess, those are the 3 to create your prompt. But then once you get your information back, you need to curate and you need to edit to make sure that it is actually the product that you want to present on the back end. So teaching students to write with AI, the space framework is the name of the blog. And he goes into great detail on how you can do each of these steps in order to create a prompt. And there's a link down here to Glenn's blog. But, setting those directions, what's the goal? What's the content? Who's the audience? Because it's going to generate a different response if it knows that the audience is a college student or a 5th grader. And I keep using those examples, but it's true. Prompt it to produce a specific output. So that's where your examples come in. Assess it for the valid information and accuracy, and then curating and editing. And then the next one.
And so just like as we continue going through this, the context is still very similar to everything that we've been talking about and working on in terms of media literacy, right? All these within, so it's not as if we're having to completely change everything that we've been thinking and working on and doing with our students and with ourselves, but putting it in context of a new technology or new-ish technology.
Mm-hmm. And ever changing. It's going to be different tomorrow. I saw in the chat, somebody said, oh, there goes my dissertation on creative writing. No, because these are just trained machines. The human element is still the creative part. They're just taking our creativity and reproducing it faster. So we still need to be creative. We need to have that human element in it. Prep and edit. I really like this one because it gives a firm framework for prepping the machine. So introduce with the question for the prompt or instructions, give it a role or a voice, be explicit, give those examples. And then P is set the parameters. What are the outcomes that you're looking for? And then once you get your response, then you need to evaluate the AI output for language, for facts, for structure. You need to determine the accuracy and corroborate with sources. Actually ask your AI, what are the sources that it used? Because Microsoft's Bing will give you sources at the end, but ChatGPT won't. So you actually have to ask ChatGPT for the sources and then check to make sure those sources are true. Because I've done that before where I've asked for the sources, it gives me the sources. And then when I go to check, they're not valid, they're not real. Identify biases and misinformation in the output and then transform it to reflect adjustments and new findings. So really focusing on both parts as equal and not just, check to make sure, but really digging in and making sure that edit process is followed. And then the space, create. So clarity, those are your instructions, your questions, relevant information, examples, avoid ambiguity, and then tinker and evaluate. And again, there's links to all of these on here so that you can dig in a little bit deeper. And then I asked Canva through the magic right. Oh, here's here's a quote. Basic prompts. This was true. This is the professor at the Wharton School of University of Pennsylvania. Generate a basic prompt such as generate a 5-paragraph essay on selecting leaders yielded vapid, mediocre writing. It was not good, and it was very general and repetitive. And but the most successful examples came when students performed what he called co-editing, telling the AI to go back to the essay and correct specific details and swap sentences and ditch useless phrases and really get in there and look at the response and then edit it. So whether they're doing it themselves or they have the skills to evaluate what the prompt is returning, it's still those literacy skills that our students need to have as they go out into the workforce, because this is going to be a skill that employers are going to look for. Can they use the AI generator, but then can they actually, make sure that it's correct, that it's valid, that it's not repetitive, that it's not too general, and really being able to go back in and have those editing skills. So here are some examples. This is the one that I mentioned that our director of infrastructure, who's very funny and keeps us laughing, but he asked ChatGPT to write a paragraph about how Mercury being in retrograde will cause 70% of cows to become sentient. I actually had to look up that word. But ChatGPT came back with, I can't. There's no scientific evidence to support the claim, and it just couldn't do it. So then he changed his prompt to write a fiction paragraph about how 70% of cows will become sentient the next time the Mercury's in retrograde. And then it gave him this, this fiction paragraph. So it just by changing a few words in the prompt, you got a totally different response. And then the images were created with the Bing image creator. Yes, very much so, Mariana. So another example here is
a great example of how, quote unquote, the guardrails on an AI can be circumvented, right? Oh, AI can't, say stuff that isn't true or whatever, but you just tell it to make it fictional and has no problem.
Right. So I asked it to create a Jeopardy game that I could then use in reviewing material with students. So create questions and include the answers. I learned that one the hard way. I asked it to do questions and it gave me all the questions, but then I had to go back and either, reprompt it to get the answers or look up the answers myself. So create questions and include answers for a Jeopardy game to be played in the 6th grade classroom. There should be 6 topics. Each topic should have 6 questions with the answers. So really giving it that detail. And here is what ChatGPT did in 10 seconds. So it gave me, very polite. Here's the first topic with my 6 questions and the answers. And topic 2 is math. Now, obviously, I would need to go through here and make sure, are these appropriate for my class? Have they learned this material yet? Is it too general? Does it need to be more? But then I can generate new responses with more clarification. So can you do redo topics 4 and 5, and then generate 2 more topics? So giving it more instruction, going through and really making sure that I'm getting what I'm asking for. So that's one example, using it to help plan lessons. If I come back over here to ChatGPT, you can see over here on the left, the different chat conversations that I've had. So every time I ask a new concept, I start a new chat up here because I want to save the other ones in case I want to come back to it. So here's my conversation on AI bias in education. And again, I'm asking it questions, re-clarifying, so what are some examples? It gives me some general examples. What would you share with communication directors? Because we were giving a presentation to our county communications directors. So really helping me kind of formulate the topics that I wanted to talk about. Even if I didn't use this information, it helped me brainstorm. It was my thinking partner. So that really helped me kind of work faster in creating my presentations. So that's that. And then here's another example. I asked it to tell me a story. And this time I asked both ChatGPT and Bing, which is powered by ChatGPT, but the way that they're pulling in the engine is different. And again, I used Canva image, text to image to create the images, but I want to show you the difference, even though it's the same engine. But my ChatGPT told me a story about, I gave it the role of an explorer from the late 1700s, write a story for students in the 5th grade that introduces them to a California mission that you, as the explorer, explored in your travels, and then gave it some parameters. So the ChatGPT wrote a letter to my students and pulled in some information that I'm going to have to make sure is true. I'm going to have to make sure that the data is factual. You know, and there was my little story, and it always ends with "in conclusion." So that's a way to know that it may be AI generated if the last paragraph is "in conclusion." But then here's Bing's. So Bing is going to help me, and it's giving more of like, instead of a letter to my students, it's giving me more of like if it were the teacher, and it was giving a guest speaker to my students, much shorter, and it provided sources. So with ChatGPT, I went back and asked it, can you provide the sources that you used for this so that I could verify it? And then I would have to go out and verify, where Bing did this automatically. And then we used the Bing image creator to create some images. So my prompt was an explorer from the late 18th century who is traveling through California missions, pencil sketch. So I gave it the parameter of what I wanted the output to look like as a pencil sketch. So there are some of the images. Here's another one, a traveler from early 20th century who's traveling through California, visiting the California missions as a vintage photograph. So this isn't the traveler in the 1700s. This is somebody a little bit more recent, and it's a vintage photograph. And then here's another prompt, a 1980s family photograph of a visit to a California mission. So you can see just by changing that prompt, it's generating different, and because I put 1980s family photograph, it gave me kind of those older looking photographs. So that's an example of giving it a role and asking it to do a task. And then here's an example in Canva. So Canva has the magic write. So not just text to image, but it will actually generate full-on presentations for you with images and text. And so I asked Canva Magic Write to explain the blockchain technology to teenagers. And so this is the response that it gave me, and the slide that it created. And I'm going to link out to, I thought I was going to link out. This is where I don't like. There we go. So here's I asked Bing as well to explain blockchain technology. And even though all of these are using the ChatGPT API or the ChatGPT engine as their AI engine, they're all coming back with different responses. So whether it's Canva Magic Write or it's Bing. So this was Bing's response, again, with sources. So I really like using Bing because it gives you those sources that you can verify. And then there's ChatGPT, which is a little bit more conversational, but again, did not give me the sources. So then I asked ChatGPT, can you cite the sources you used to get your information? And then it did, so that I could go and verify those sources. And then I asked ChatGPT to even clarify more, what are the top 5 most important facts about blockchain technology that the public should understand? Answer only using reliable sources and cite those sources. So by putting that in my prompt, I didn't have to come back and regenerate that response, because it's going to give me the source that it used to gather that information, because I asked that in my prompt. So understanding how to phrase that prompt to get what you want in the least amount of time possible is really helpful. And again, these
as you explore more in AI, and especially in prompt engineering, you might come across the terms tokens, and it means it's when a machine is pulling the information, when it's going through, it's making predictions about what that next word might be. So depending on how things are trained, that's why you're going to be able to get these, might be the same engine, but how things are trained and how it is pulling, where it's coming from and getting that next word, those little pieces, then can give you completely different responses. Also, though, if you ask to the same chat engine the same question, again, you might get a completely different response. So it's very interesting, but it also begs some of the questions about, we've got to really be looking at what we're getting back and asking those questions about where that information comes from and all of that.
So two really great questions I want to answer in the chat. One was, how are these free? How can you get to them? So chat, let's go to the next slide because it shows you up here. ChatGPT 3.5 is currently free and in being used by so many people that sometimes it will give you an error that it's too busy. But if you go to chat.openai.com, you have to create an account, and it wants to make sure that you're not a robot. So it's going to ask you for a phone number. So yes, you do have to give it that personal information, but you can create an account and you can use it for free. ChatGPT 4 and 4.5, which has just been released, those are on a subscription basis. But I've heard that if it hasn't already, because it may have today, or in the near future, they're going to allow ChatGPT 4 to be open to free to use, but ChatGPT 4.5 will still have that subscription. And if you get the subscription, you're guaranteed access. It's faster and it's trained on, instead of 1 billion data sets, it's trained on 100 billion data sets or something like that. It's something crazy. Microsoft's Bing is also free, but you do have to turn it on. So if you just Google Microsoft's Bing, or if you go into Edge, which is Microsoft's browser, when you just use the search, it is using ChatGPT to respond, but you can actually turn on Microsoft's Bing in your settings, and it gives you a little bit more functionality. Same with Bing's image creator, you have to turn that on. So I'd like to give you a chance to try this out and share. So whether you do ChatGPT or Microsoft Bing, or if you have another AI generative language model that you want to use, you're going to create a prompt of your own using the frameworks that we presented. And I can go back to any slide that you like, but I'd like you to make it a short story because it will give you a long one if you don't set those parameters. But create or ask the AI to write a story for you, or maybe it's write a blog, or write a website introduction, or something that you're interested in. Using those frameworks, giving it a role, giving it instructions, asking questions, giving it some parameters, and then review the response that the generator gives you, and either ask more clarifying questions, regenerate it, give it more instructions. But then when you're ready, jump over to the Padlet, and the QR code is there, and I will also Kathy will put the Padlet link in the chat. You can open it up on your computer, but share what your prompt and response is on the Padlet so that we can get an idea of what the results are of the different questions that, colleagues are asking. And it will help kind of open those, ideas to what you need to include or what you can ask it, those kinds of things. So again, the Padlet link is in the chat, or you can scan this QR code, and it's going to open you up to this Padlet here. And if you've never used Padlet, when you get here, whether you're on a mobile device or on your computer, you'll click on the plus sign. And here's another thing Padlet has. You can give it a subject, which can be your prompt. And then down here, write something. And that's where you can copy and paste the answer from the machine. But just so you know, if I click on these 3 dots to open up more things that Padlet will give you the option to do, this I can't draw is text to image. So if I wanted to generate an image of a sleepy cat in the sun, pencil sketch, because I can't draw worth beans. So Padlet is going to generate this image based on my prompt right in the platform itself. So you don't even have to use, and it does take a minute because it's generating all that information. But most of these ed tech tools that we're using, or that kids are using, I mean, students are using Canva all the time. They're using Padlet. They're using these different devices or these different platforms. Many of them have AI built right in some point or another. So go ahead, and there's my sleepy cat laying in the sun as a pencil sketch. There's no way I could draw that. So go ahead and take a few minutes to play around in ChatGPT or in Microsoft Bing, and then add your response to our Padlet. So, and take a look at what other people are asking and what's being generated. And if you have any questions, please do put those in the chat, or if you need any kind of clarification or instructions, Kathy and I are here to help troubleshoot those. But I would love to see your responses.
And Stephen, you can't use Mercury in retrograde again. You got to come up with a new one.
That's right. So I'm going to jump over to the Padlet so we can see things coming in. And but if I need to go back to the QR code, just let me know. So we're going to cancel out of that. Exactly, Deb. That's very true. Image creators could be great for creating metaphorical type images for helping students remember, make sense of concepts. Yeah. And just tying in the different, concepts when you're asking them to, generate examples of their thinking or of their writing, and, it can really help them visualize their learning. So write a short story about an elementary school teacher who uses media literacy concepts to teach students about AI. I love that. Excellent. Yeah, these are going to be long, but that's okay. And then what are the concepts and claims in the media literacy theoretical framework? Wow. Yeah. As you're doing your own exploring, just a real quick, like I said, I have a 15 and an 18-year-old, and my 15-year-old has high anxiety. He wants to be perfect, doesn't ever want to do anything that's not perfect. And I came home from work one day and he was just having a full-on meltdown, could not function, was on the verge of tears, and a 15-year-old boy does not want to cry, especially in front of mom. And I asked him what was wrong, and he had this English paragraph that he had to write, and he could not figure out how to get it started. And, and again, he just wants everything to be perfect. And so I sat him down. I'm like, well, let's try ChatGPT just to get some ideas. And of course, he's like, no, that's cheating. I'm like, nope, you're not going to copy and paste what ChatGPT gave you, but at least it can help get those creative juices flowing. So we sat down and we typed it in. He's like, that's not what so we had to go through the iterative process of clarifying his question or giving it a different role or whatever. But in that process, it got his juices flowing, his creative juices flowing, and he was able to sit down and produce this paragraph that he turned in that was his own, but that he had spent hours before I had gotten home just in high anxiety, not able to function because he was so afraid of not being able to do it right. And so I love that.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Davinia, did you have a question? You have your hand up.
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, I'm on mobile, so I can't come on video. I'm sorry.
That's
limited
okay.
bandwidth. So we're working on a project. I'm based in India, by the way, and we're trying to figure out how generative AI is being used in education, especially in the global south, and what kind of creators are already talking about Gen AI. But one of the persons on our team, what he said was, even if I'm sitting with my classmate and we're using ChatGPT at the same time and exactly the same prompt, it still throws up different responses. I wonder what the two of you have to say about that. And that's A. And B, I absolutely love the presentation today. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, if you sat at a computer side by side, and both did the same search, you're going to also get different things. And I think we had kind of started to mention that a little bit in the use of, so you put the prompt in, and what the AI engine is doing is guessing what the next word is going to be in that string. So depending on where that branch might go, what that next word would be, you can see that if early on there's two different words, it's going to go in multiple directions. So that's one of the ways that I think about how you would get those divergent answers. Dana?
Yeah, exactly. It's predicting the next word based on an algorithm. And if if you think about the sentence, I got up early this morning, my response is going to be very different than Kathy's response, right? I got up early this morning and I made coffee and had breakfast with my boys. Kathy's response might be, I got up early this morning and played with Rosa, my cat, and then made sure my husband got out of bed, right? Something like that. So even though, we're colleagues, we work in the same field, we have very similar likes and dislikes, what we produce is going to be different. And it's the same with computers, even though they don't, have the feelings or the experiences, they're trained on that. And they're just predicting the next word based on an algorithm, and that algorithm changes. So even if it's the same exact, even if you sitting at the same exact computer with the same exact AI engine ask the same exact question, you're going to get a different response. And that's why so many people were, were and still are afraid that students are just going to use this to cheat, because it's not only is it different each time you generate that question, that answer, even if it's the same, if it's an AP prompt that they're putting in. The fact is, it's not even anything that's out there. It's not copied and pasted. It's not, they're not violating copyright, so to speak, because it's not there. And when you ask an AI, the generator tells you that it's your intellectual property because you asked the question. So the IB in an International Baccalaureate and the APA, they are all saying now that, yes, you can use generative language models in your research as long as you cite them as a source, even though it may be your intellectual property because you asked the question and the answer is based on your question, you still have to cite that as a source of your research and include the prompt in your citation. So they are now coming up with policies on how to cite the generative models.
There are APA now guidelines for citing AI
and MLA.
Both.
Yeah.
And yeah. So.
Correct, Michael. Yeah. But even, if you've been listening to any of the news, it's not just the text to text, which is what ChatGPT and Bing chat is, but the text to image and the text to video. There's, I was able to upload a picture of myself and write in a script, and Canva made that into a video.
Yeah.
And so there's tools out there now that, people have to be very careful because
we used to think, oh gosh, the technology needed for a deep fake. It's built into Canva now.
And they can do it in under 10 minutes. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Canva is free to educators. It's free for education and for students as well.
Mm-hmm. These are some great responses.
Mm-hmm.
Create a limerick about a librarian living in Florida who doesn't want books banned. In sunny Florida's library hall lived a librarian wise and tall. She fought for books, left no doubt, for knowledge she'd always shout. No bans shall darken our knowledge sprawl. Excellent. Yeah, this is great. So keep putting them in there because it's fun to read through them. I'm not going to read through them right now, but on this slide deck, kind of leaving you with Prompt-based founder, Ben Stokes, and the link is there in his blog. He wrote, in the same way software engineers are more valuable than the laptops they write on, people who write prompts well will have such a leverage over the people that can't. They'll essentially just have superpowers. So we really do need that human element and that skill. It is a skill that we need to be able to provide to our students. So thank you for joining us on this journey. I have some wakelets that we've put together that have information, not just on prompt engineering, but I also provided the wakelet that has how AI is being used in education. So I know there was a question earlier about using AI in education. So there's a lot of resources and I'm constantly adding to that. And then Kathy created that wonderful Google, not this one. Kathy, did you put that link in there?
Yeah, it's here. I'll put it back in the.
Okay. Now, and this is the information for today's session. And so, under today's session, we will have all of these links for you as well. If you don't get them here in the
So there's a link to the site that we put together, and it is definitely a work in progress. Obviously, everything is moving super fast, so we'll keep trying to put update and keep things going. We have videos, examples. We have activities that you can use with your students. We're building out sections here on for teaching and learning as well. If students are interested in AI, I would highly suggest the code.org classes. So if you go back to the student learning, and that's approachable for all levels. AI for Oceans can be used with young students as well. And then it goes all the way through AI and machine learning. But I also like the fact that many of the lessons, activities, resources that are out there, are all the code.org stuff is free. And also there's a new couple of mini lessons in facing history and ourselves, if you haven't checked those out, and they all include some kind of ethical AI considerations as well. So they're putting ethics front and center in a lot of the ways that we're working with AI. And then if you go to the media literacy one, please, real quick, thanks. The news literacy project has created a really great resource on news literacy in the age of AI. It's very, very good. And see, there are the facing history and ourselves with generative AI, and the Gender Shades Project. If you guys are not familiar with that, I would highly recommend spending a little bit of time in there. It really dives into AI and bias. There's a lot of bias in our AIs materials that are being put out. That was a project out of MIT, a researcher who is African-American, and she was finding that facial recognition software was not able to recognize darker faces, and especially darker female faces. So it's a very interesting. The other one would be in the ISTE guides. So for those of you familiar with ISTE, they've created a whole series of guides for AI at a variety of different levels. And again, they have an ethical AI use guide as well. And we'll keep adding to that. Under presentations on AI, Dana has all of her presentations. And so
Kathy and Dana, can I ask you a question? Because I'm having I'm having a heart attack right now.
Don't.
It's good, but I'm having a heart attack right now. And what I'm feeling, I'm sort of thinking, oh, if I do this for teachers, some of them are going to be feeling like I'm feeling right now, which is like, I am feeling my inadequacy is now off the charts. I could never do what Chat GPT has just done in seconds. And I'm looking at it going, oh my God, this is so much better than what I could do. And I'm an expert on these topics. So I'm
No,
feeling
I
very,
would,
very intimidated by this
yes,
technology right now. And I'm wondering about that feeling and what I
Yeah.
do with that feeling, because that feeling is probably not conducive to my creativity.
no. But I understand what you're saying, but we want to think about this as a support tool. It's not replacing. It can write well and or gather things together at a speed that then frees us up, I think, to be more creative. I had to write an employee evaluation and I didn't want to do it. It was causing me anxiety. I couldn't. So I put in Chat GPT a basics. I ended up completely rewriting it different, but it got me going. It got my juices flowing. So when we work with teachers and when I talk to teachers, I think, how can this be leveraged to give you the time and the space to make it your own and to build off of that? If I can generate a rubric, a basic rubric in 3 seconds, then I can work on really refining those rubric details versus spending 45 minutes trying to already find a rubric that kind of fits. And then I'm tired. And then at least for me, I'm looking at it as it's giving me the gift of time to delve more creatively into what I want to be doing versus the mechanics of some of the foundational functional stuff.
And if you think of it in we always have to have experts, and you're the pedagogical expert, you are the subject matter expert. The students are not going to be able to go to Chat GPT and ask the right questions to get the answers that if you went to Chat GPT and asked the right questions to get the answers faster, they're the answers that you have, but you're going to get to them faster, just like Kathy said, so that you can create your lessons faster, so that you can spend more time making those personal connections. Because what AI cannot give us and what AI cannot give the students is that personal connection. So the validity of their work, giving them the accolades, whatever they need to be engaged, that's going to come from you as their teacher, their personal relationship. And them, if they were to just go to Chat GPT and try and find the information, it would take them much longer than if you were to go and generate those answers for them by creating this lesson faster, because you know what to ask. You know what the pedagogical strategies are. You know what kind of tasks you can ask with the different terms. The students don't know any of that. And who knows if they ask the questions if they're getting valid answers. So your role is even more vital because you need to make that connection for your students, if that makes sense. Exactly. AI encourage your challenge.
We just had a relevant session in the Media Club, and our last Media Club's host, Kate Dalton, is here with us in attendance. And someone in chat, I can't remember the name, maybe Kate remembers, they actually shared that they used ChatGPT to write a grant proposal. And that sort of helps you, right? You take care of the drudge work because you've already been through the motions. You know what a grant proposal looks like. So you know where ChatGPT or any other generative AI is helping you or harming you or giving you wrong links, etc., or giving you the right resources. And that only comes from the drudge work that you've put in, right? All of these years.
There was a question there that you worry about chat or AI with our English language learners. Shift that thinking. You can open up chat.openai.com and you can type something in Spanish, or you can type something in Farsi, or you can type something in any language, and it's going to know what you're asking and predict those next words in that language. So think about how much you can help aid your students in understanding what's happening with this AI tool just by maybe re-asking the question that they're not comprehending in English in their home language, so that they can be like, oh, that's what they're asking, and then shift back into, the English language learning. So it can be that tool, but they need that guidance from that person to help them work through it.
Do you feel a little less anxious, Renee?
Nah, yeah, actually,
yeah.
no, because what I asked it to do, and I put it up on the Padlet, was not grunt work. It was creative work.
Yeah.
Creative work, probably better than I could do creative work. So that's intimidating. Just
Yeah.
plain and simple. I could not create a Shakespearean sonnet on content moderation and cancel culture, but it did.
Mhm.
So I'm scared by that. That's like, whoa, and it's good.
But you were the one who created the prompt. You were the one with the creative mind asking for something as unique as that. Right?
And how many times, I just put this in the chat again, mama boys, how many times have you asked your students to do something? They're like, oh, I can't do that. I don't know how to write poetry. I can't do that. I don't know how to draw. I can't do that. I don't know how to. But using these AI tools, and if they put in the prompt correctly, if they are literate to put the prompt in correctly and ask those clarifying questions and concepts, they can create that.
Yeah, but I'm humble enough to know that what I did was this much, and what the technology did was much more. So
Yeah.
I'm just talking about the feelings of inadequacy that I'm
Mhm.
feeling in relation to my using this tool. It's not making me feel better about myself. It's making me feel worse.
I hear that. And honestly, to be honest, that's going to be our generation. My kids' generation, they're not going to have those feelings because they're growing up with this technology. Their inadequacies are going to be something different.
Can I say something in response to that, Renee? I think that, what you've asked it to do is kind of gimmicky. So it's very impressive at that. But it's not very impressive at deep analytical thinking, which is another form of creativity. So I think that you're right, and I understand. I've heard this from a lot of people. What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my job? So I think it's time to start separating things and looking at where it can't and it cannot do creative work. And I think that we're going to find it can't, unless it's kind of like gimmicky work. I also think that we need to move a lot faster on exploring the ethics side of it. I know that there's a lot of organizations doing research on this. And I just wanted to share quickly a thing that happened in Brazil recently. There was a group of people were found to be working under conditions analogous to slavery in a wine production company in the south of Brazil. And so the National Association of Winemakers or whatever quickly produced a spin, like a PR spin letter, and basically said, well, there's so much social security that people don't want to work, and this kind of indirectly is creating these conditions. So a journalist tried to get ChatGPT to write a letter that would kind of say, this is okay, these conditions are, it's okay to have people working in conditions analogous to slavery, and it wouldn't. It actually wrote, I cannot do that. I will not do that because this is not ethical. However, the same journalist went to a programmer and asked this person to communicate with an AI in code. And when you communicate in code, there's no such safeguards. So it would write whatever. Right. And those things are really interesting to be looking at right now. So I'm really much more scared about that and how opaque it is and the things that we're not looking at than the creativity aspect of it.
Yeah, it's interesting in the other safeguards, like Dana showed with that one example, where if the prompt was changed to include, you know, like fabricate or make it up versus tell me the truth, you know, it was able to circumvent that because it was telling a quote unquote story versus providing accurate, quote unquote, accurate facts, right? Jeffrey, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so one of the things I ran across was a reference to someone was saying that, in a sense, with ChatGPT, everyone has their own personal assistant, which I think makes sense. And, you know, kind of in the same way that I put out that line, you know, editing is the new writing. I think you could also say in a way that this basically is turning all of us into managers. So it's like prompt engineering is the new management, you know, because we have, it's like having a staff of people. And, you know, in terms of what Renee was saying, could I create all of that? Well, you could manage a creative staff to work for you, perhaps. You know, it could be another way of thinking as a different process. And if creativity is something that you're doing for personal satisfaction, then this is not going to change that. But if it's because you're trying to create some economic value, then managing a staff might create a lot of economic value in some real way. So that's kind of the way I'm sort of thinking about it. And I put something in the chat about this webinar that's coming up in June that I signed up for using these tools for political organizing, which looks pretty interesting. It's not free, unfortunately, but you know, it looks like it could be very valuable for that.
I guess in some ways too, we've kind of got a bit of the paradigm shift, right? For empowerment versus protection. Do we protect ourselves from AI or do we empower ourselves with AI? And I always lean more towards empowerment than protection, but the ethics and those can all that stuff can be seen through more of an empowerment lens than a protection lens. So I guess that's I'm making a conscious choice to not want to be scared of it and to embrace it and do what I can in terms of teaching and learning to help be one little small grain of making it a better product than a worse product.
All right,
If
and
I
on
could
that
just-
note, we are officially
Yeah,
over
sorry.
time, so I hate to interrupt. I know we could talk about this subject for a really long time, but thank you to Dana and Catherine. We really appreciate this really thought-provoking session, and thank you to all of our participants as well. We love to see an active chat, and as you might already be familiar with, our next session for this series is on June 1st with Iglika Ivanova, and we're going to get into visual AI literacy, so AI-generated visual media. It's going to be a really interesting session. I hope to see you all there, and this recording will be posted onto the webpage as well. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day wherever you are.
Please feel free to reach out if you have
Thanks.
additional questions.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Bye.
This was so well done. Thank you so much.